Hello everyone, happy Friday. I hope you've had a great week. It's time for some simple stamping and we are using the Well Done stamp set tonight. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, and I am so excited to share with you these cute projects made with just stamps from the Well Done set, ink, and cardstock. Now, simple stamping is not the easiest thing to do for those of us that love all our layers and lots of embellishments and using our die cutting and embossing machine, but it is really fun to stamp simple projects. It's a challenge, I have to say, and I'm really enjoying making these simple projects for you each week. Now, let me just pull up my video here so I can see who is watching. Where are we here? There we are. Let's see who's here. Oh, hi Jen, how are you? Oh, got two Jens on tonight. And hi Heather, how are you guys? Hope you've had a good week. So these are the three projects I'm going to show you. And as I said, they use only stamps, ink, and cardstock. So these are perfect for any level of stamper. You don't need a whole bunch of special tools. You just need the Well Done stamp set and some ink and cardstock. So I'm going to show you how to do these. We're going to walk through them. We're going to start with this guy here. So we are starting with a piece of Whisper White cardstock. So this is cut to, and I have to get my ruler out because I can't remember, 2 5/8 by 4. Okay, 2 5/8 by 4. And I am using 2 shades of green ink tonight. So Granny Apple Green and Shaded Spruce. And we're going to go ahead and stamp our seaweed. Now, this seaweed image I am absolutely loving because if you look here on my sample, the seaweed isn't very tall. But the cool thing about this is you can layer it and have it look like they're attached even though they're not. So it's kind of cool when I discovered that. Let's see who else has joined us. Oh, Deb is here and Mary is here. Hi, Sue. All right, so we are going to ink up our seaweed stamp and we are going to, ooh, that is a very, very dry ink pad. I should have re-inked my Granny Apple Green. All right, so we're gonna stamp a few seaweeds here and you're gonna see that I'm going to layer these. Wow, is this ever dry? I think I might have to get my re-inker. Do you guys want to see how to re-ink an ink pad? It's time. Let me grab my re-inker and my plastic spoon. All right, I'm going to show you how to re-ink an ink pad because this Granny Apple Green is looking rather desert-like. Okay? All right, so I have here my Granny Apple Green re-inker. To re-ink the pad, I'm going to simply squeeze the re-inker, and you're going to see this thing's going to suck this ink up like crazy because it is a super dry pad. So I'm kind of just doing a squiggle both directions across my pad. And then this is the important step. This is the one that you don't want to miss. Okay. So once you've got your ink on there, you're going to take the back of a plastic spoon and you're going to give your ink pad a little bit of a massage. So I'm working in sort of a circular motion. And what I'm doing is I'm pressing that ink down into the pad. And that is going to give you a better quality image. Otherwise, when you first re-ink the pad, all of your ink is right at the top of the pad and it's too juicy. And you end up losing a lot of the detail in your stamped image. And you may end up with ink all over your block and all kinds of not so fun things. So that is how you re-ink an ink pad. Easy peasy, right? All right, so let's try that again. We're gonna ink up our seaweed. Oh, so much better already, I can tell. Look at that. So much better. So I'm just stamping the seaweed a few times. I'm going to stamp it at different heights and different angles. And then I'm actually going to stamp it up higher as well. And the cool thing about this is it looks, once I get my whale and my sentiment on, we're not going to notice the fact that those look like they're floating. Okay? I'm going to add one more sort of in the middle here. We're going to do that. There we go. All right, so let's put that away. And I'm just gonna give this a quick clean and we're gonna switch to the Shaded Spruce. Who else has joined? Hi, Gail, how are you? Hi, Rita. Hope you guys have had a good week. All right, so we're gonna bring in some Shaded Spruce. I'm gonna ink up the same stamp and I'm going to add just a few of the darker seaweed just across the bottom. And then I'm going to bring in this little guy. So there is a smaller seaweed stamp in this set as well. And again, it just varies the height and adds just a little bit of interest to our stamped images here. Okay, that's it. So easy. All right, let's put this one away. And I'm going to set my seaweed aside. I'm going to bring in my little fishies here. And we are going to stamp our background. So you'll see on my granny apple green background, I've got some little fish swimming along. So we're going to ink up our fishies with the granny apple green. And I'm just going to stamp them several times, creating my little school of fish. And I'm trying not to be really regular with it because, as we know, fish are not, don't quite necessarily swim in well choreographed patterns. So we're going to add a few down here just to make it look like they're kind of swimming across the page. Okay, easy, easy, easy. Alrighty, now in my kit here, I have a piece of shaded spruce cardstock. Do you remember this was 2 5/8? So this one is 2 3/4. So it's just 1/8 of an inch wider. And when I glue this on, you're gonna see that I'm gonna have a narrow border on either side. It is also 4 inches wide, okay? It's the same width as the white. So we're gonna add a little bit of glue here. And we're going to layer this on here like this. And we just want to make sure, and I find it easiest if I'm working against a contrasting color when I'm trying to get my borders even. Because white on white for me is not so good. All right, there we go. So then we're ready to glue that onto our card front. And I'm a big fan of doing things off center. Keep in mind, this is going to end up centered. So I kind of want this panel to be off centered just a little bit. Okay. And for that, I'm going to use a little bit of seal. And we're going to pop this on. I'm putting this on about 1 inch over from the left edge. So 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So I'm just going to line up my shaded spruce piece with the 4th square. Make sure we're straight. Okay. And then we're ready to glue that onto our card base. So our card base is also shaded spruce cardstock. It's 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we'll fold that in half and crisp it up with our bone folder. And then I'm going to throw a little bit more seal on the back of my panel. And we're going to pop this on like this. And we will have an equal border all the way around. Okay. Now we need to stamp our sentiment and our little whale. So I have a couple of scraps of Whisper White cardstock. This one is 3/4 of an inch wide by, I don't know, maybe 3 inches long. Something to that effect. And what did I do with my thanks a ton? Oh, I left it over on my desk. There it is. There we go. And we're going to ink that up with some Memento black ink. So you could do this with a color as well. I just kind of wanted to do it in black to work with my black whale. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that on my little strip here. And I'm going to attempt to do it straight again while not looking straight on. We're going to cross our fingers. Oh, that was pretty good. All right. We're going to add a couple fishies. I'm going to keep that black ink out because I'm going to need it in a sec. So I'm going to ink up my little fish again. And I think this time, because I re-inked the pad, I'm actually going to stamp off my fish so that they're not too dark, because I want to be able to see them or see my sentiment. Okay. So there is my sentiment strip. And then we're going to pull in just a scrap of white cardstock and we're going to stamp our whale. So again, I'm going to ink them up in the black. And when you're using the Memento, you want to really dig into the pad. These are felt pads. They're not like our foam pads, okay? With the foam pads, it's just a light tap, tap, tap. But with the Memento, you really want to dig in there to get good coverage. And we're going to stamp our whale. Made him a little orca. And we're going to take our paper snips and snip them out. Now, because this is a simple stamping card, I am not going to use my punch. There is a coordinating punch for this stamp, but I am being true to the simple stamping mantra of stamp sync paper. So I am just going to cut this out with my scissors. This really is not a difficult one to cut out, honestly. as fussy cutting standards go. So when we're fussy cutting, again, we always want to make sure that we're moving the paper more than we're moving our scissors. So you rotate the paper kind of like you were cutting on a bandsaw, right? If you were cutting on a bandsaw with wood, you move the wood, you don't move the saw. The saw is fixed, okay? And that will give you smoother, more detailed cuts. All right, so let's go around the tail. The other thing that I like to do when I'm fussy cutting is leave just a little bit of a white border going all the way around. And that is to give me wiggle room. So if I make a mistake and I cut too close to the image, I can always go back afterwards and cut down on my border. So I like doing that just because it gives me just a little bit of room for error. All right, so there is my little baby orca. And we need to cut a little banner end in the end of our sentiment strip. I'm actually going to cut this a teensy bit shorter. So to do that, you're going to snip in the middle of your strip, and then you're going to go from one corner to the top of your snip and then the other corner. And that's how you get a nice even banner end. Okay, let's get rid of all our little scraps here. We're going to go ahead and glue our little whale onto the end of our sentiment strip. So we'll just glue him on here like this. He's so cute. And then he's going to get popped up. Now this is against the rules of the simple stamping rules. I'm not supposed to use dimensionals, but I'm sorry. I have an addiction to dimensionals. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Those of you who know me know about my addiction to dimensionals, and you have accepted it. So yeah, I'm breaking the simple stamping rules. Sorry, girls. All right, so we're gonna get rid of our backings and we're gonna pop our little whale on, and I want to cover up, see these ones that are floating? So I'm gonna put that at a height where I actually hide the fact that my seaweed is floating. And then they just look like really long seaweeds. And that's it. Super simple. Easy peasy. You like that one? I hope you like that one. All right, what else do I need? I need to keep my whale out. I need my seaweed. Okay, we're gonna get this out of the way and we're gonna move on to card number 2. Number 2 is this cutie. I love this little whale so much, and I just thought it would be really cute to have him peeking out from behind my sentiment there. So we are going to stamp this one. So we're going to start with a piece of Whisper White cardstock that is 4 by 5 1/4. Yes, we're all addicted, Heather. I've been addicted for a long time. That's why I had to become a demonstrator, because I needed to save some money. And look at me now. What can I say? I only joined for the discount many, many years ago. All right, so we're going to take our seaweed. And hey, Brenda, how are ya? Thanks, Laura. Glad you like that one. And we're going to grab our Granny Apple Green again. And we're going to stamp our seaweed a few times. So I'm going to start by stamping sort of up high. Okay. And I'm going to add a couple. Now this is going to look kind of ugly where it overlaps, but we're not going to worry about it because this is going to get hidden. All right. So we don't really need to worry too much about the fact that that doesn't look so nice, because nobody's going to see it. And we'll add a couple more little guys here. And I think we're going to add a couple little bitty seaweeds. We're going to go do one here, fill that in. And I'm going to add one up here and one over here just to fill that in. Okay, so that is our seaweed layer. I'm going to keep that out because I'm going to need it for my sentiment. Then we're going to stamp our little whale. And for this, what I found is when I inked my whale, I want to make sure that I'm only inking sort of the part that I'm going to see. The reason is I wanted, the first time I tried this card, I stamped the whole whale and I ended up seeing his tail up above, and I didn't really like that. I wanted him to really be kind of hidden behind the sentiment. So I'm going to ink up just the portion of the whale that I want to see. So I'm not inking the tail. Okay. And then we're going to stamp this, and it has to go over farther than you might think. The first time I did it, I didn't do them over far enough, and I think there's a hair on my stamp, but again, we're going to hide that. Okay, so there is my whale. I stamped that in basic gray ink. I think I forgot to mention that. Hey, Bonnie. It is an absolutely adorable set, Heather. I couldn't agree more. It is so, so cute. All right, next we need some Coastal Cabana ink. And we are going to take our Well Done sentiment. I love the puns in this set. And we're going to ink up our Well Done, but we're going to stamp off once before we stamp on our cardstock. So I'm going to stamp a few times. I really need to put a mat behind this grid paper because my pad of grid paper is almost done and I don't have a lot of cushioning. And I'm not getting the greatest images. So I will grab one in a minute. Okay, so there is my Well Done. And then with the same color of ink, I'm going to add some little bubbles to my whale. There he is, okay. And then this is actually ready to glue onto my card base. So my card base, I'm gonna get this out of the way before I have a disaster. My card base is just like the last card, 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we're gonna fold that in half along our score line. Hi Bonnie, how are you doing? Hope you had a good week. All right, so we're gonna pop that onto the front of our card. So again, just a little bit of seal will do the job. So we'll pop that on there. We're right about there. Okay, this is ugly. Don't worry, we're gonna hide it. All right, so then we're gonna deal with our sentiment. So our sentiment is on a Whisper White square that is 1 3/4 inches square. Okay, so 1 3/4 inches. And I'm gonna take my You're Kind of a Big Deal stamp and I'm gonna ink it up with my basic gray ink. Whoops, not upside down, would be preferable. And I'm gonna stamp the sentiment right in the middle of that square. And again, I have to use a lot of pressure because I don't have my mat underneath here, okay? All right, so then we're gonna stamp just a little bit of seaweed along the right edge, just so that it kind of blends with our background. So I'm gonna add just a couple of little seaweeds here, okay? And we're gonna glue this now onto a Coastal Cabana layer that is 1 7/8 square, okay? 1 7/8. So again, we're gonna have an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And in order to get it centered and have that wiggle room, we're gonna just use a little bit of Tombow. Hi Leaf, glad you could make it. Yeah, you might wanna watch the very first card. It's kind of a cute one. It's not hard, but it's cute. Okay, so there is my layered sentiment. And then again, I'm going to break the simple stamping rules and pop it up. Because you know what? Even beginner stampers need to be introduced to dimensionals. They are life-changing, right? Am I right? Tell me I'm right. All right, let's get rid of these backings. And we're gonna make all this ugliness disappear by popping this up. So again, I wanna make sure I can see my little whale peeking out. So this is about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch over from the edge. And we're just gonna pop that on there like that. And there he is. Isn't that cute? So cute. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, moving on. Just gonna clean up some of my mess here. Don't need that, don't need that, don't need that, do need that, don't need that, don't need that. Okay. Trying to get rid of a few stamps here because this last card uses a lot of stamps. A lot of stamps. So this one, I kind of was challenging myself to see if I could use pretty much all the stamps in the stamp set with these 3 cards. And lo and behold, I only had the turtle left and 1 sentiment. So I did pretty well. Oh, and the heart. So I did pretty well. I used all but 3. So on this card, we're going to use all the rest of the ones that I haven't used yet. And we're also going to use a ton of different ink colors because I really love creating a colorful underwater scene. If you've ever been to here in Southern Ontario, our big aquarium is called Ripley's Aquarium in Toronto. And the colors are amazing when you go. The colors of the coral and the fish, it's just incredible. So I love creating colorful underwater scenes because it reminds me of Ripley's Aquarium. So here is, I should add this one too. Oh, and I need my shaded spruce as well. So here are the colors that I use. So we've got Balmy Blue, Pacific Point, Gorgeous Grape, Mango Melody, Calypso Coral, Granny Apple Green, and Shaded Spruce. Okay, so it's a super colorful card. So we're going to start with our Whisper White panel. Now this is 3.5. Yes, I'm going to double check. Yes, 3.5 by 5, I believe. Nope, 3.5 by 4 3/4. Okay, so a little bit smaller than I typically do, but it's gonna, I feel like having a wider white border around the outside kind of sets the scene off a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is create sort of this bubble background. So to do that, we have this like spatter stamp that could be bubbles. And we're gonna take our balmy blue ink and we're going to stamp several times with that stamp. So you'll notice I'm stamping full strength and then stamped off at least once or twice, okay? And that gives you the dimension and the depth and also allows you to fill in your background a little faster because this is a pretty small stamp. And the big thing too is to remember, you don't want to create a pattern, right? So you want to be as random as you can. And just kind of create your bubbles. So you could take as much or as little time as you like doing this. You could even do it with different shades of blue and that would create a really cool effect. I figure you guys don't want to sit and watch me stamp for 20 minutes to create a really cool background. So I'm just doing it with the balmy blue. But it would look great with like balmy blue and Pacific Point and maybe a little bit of Seaside Spray. Would look amazing. Get lots of depth and texture. But the cool thing about this stamp is that it's a pretty random pattern to begin with. So as long as you keep rotating your stamp and or your cardstock, you're going to get a pretty random look. Okay, I'm going to add just a couple more full strength ones up here. There we go. Okay, there's our bubble background. Super, super easy. Oh, Heather, you were a scuba diver. That's one thing I've never done. I've gone snorkeling, but I have never scuba dived. I don't know what the past tense of that is. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing to see the colors in coral reefs. They're just phenomenal. Okay, so now we're going to stamp some more seaweed. So I'm going to bring back my freshly inked Granny Apple Green. And I'm going to stamp some seaweed again, randomly along the two sides. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my little guy here and I'm going to fill in a few more sort of down the bottom. I really need to get a mat. Let me see. Let's put a mat under here and we're going to get much better quality images. So if you find that when you are stamping with photopolymer stamps that you are not getting really great crisp images, it's probably because your work surface is not perfectly flat and your stamps are not coming into full contact with the paper. Okay, so using a foam mat, whether it's a mouse pad or one of our Stampin' Pierce mats, will fix that problem. Okay, all right, so now I'm going to bring in my shaded spruce. I'm just going to stamp off the Granny Apple Green a little bit. And then I'm going to add a couple of the darker green right over top. And I just think adding that extra layer just adds so much depth to my little scene here. We'll just add a couple of these little guys. There we go. So awesome. Love it. Okay, so then we are going to pull in our Mango Melody and our coral stamp. We're going to add some coral along the bottom of our little seascape here. So, and again, with the coral, what I like to do is kind of vary the height. So I'm stamping more towards the bottom, more off the page, and then more on the page, okay, to get that coral. Next, we're going to add some little purple fish. So we're going to bring in our gorgeous grape. Hi, Alfie. How are you doing? Hope you've had a good week and are staying cool in this heat. All right, so we're going to add a couple of little fishies here. Swimming along our coral reef. And again, we want to try to be a little bit random with them. We don't want them to look too organized. And we'll do a couple swimming off the edge. Okay. And then we're going to add some seahorses. So we'll bring in our Calypso coral. Calypso Coral pad has seen better days. I need to get a replacement. It has been through the mail, this one. Okay, so there are my two little seahorses, and then our last little sea creature will be our jellyfish. And we're going to stamp that one in Pacific Point. So we'll ink that guy up, and we're going to stamp him kind of up and off. He's swimming away. He's already had a meal, and he's going off to find some unsuspecting swimmer to stay. Okay, so there is our underwater scene. So then we are going to layer that. So this, if you'll recall, was 3.5 by 4 3/4. This, I think, let me double check, is 3 3/4 by 5, I believe. Yes, 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, so that is going to layer on there quite nicely. So we'll add a little bit of adhesive. Hey Julie, how are you? Hope you've had a good week. We'll just pop this on right about there. Okay, and then we're going to put that onto a card base that is made of thick Whisper White cardstock. So we carry two types of Whisper White. One is our standard weight, which is what I use for layering and stamping on. It's really, really hard pressed, so it really takes the ink nicely. And then we have a thick Whisper White, which is awesome for card bases. Okay, so this one is cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we'll fold this in half along our score line. And then we're going to pop this on. Whew, went off my mat there. Little off-roading. Okay, so then we're going to pop this on, and we're going to have a wider border all the way around. And again, it's just going to help to set off that beautiful scene we just stamped. Okay, and then our last touch is to stamp our sentiment. So again, this is a 3/4 by probably 3-inch strip of Whisper White. And I'm going to take my hoping all your birthday fishes come true. I love that punny sentiment. And we're going to stamp that in our Pacific Point. So we're going to stamp again, hoping that it is straight. Not looking straight on. That's not bad. And then we're going to add just a couple little fishies. But first we have to clean our stamp because we stamped with Gorgeous Grape. And we're going to stamp this time with the Mango. So we want to make sure that we've gotten rid of all that purple ink. And then we'll pull in our Mango Melody and ink up our little fish. And again, I'm going to stamp off once, and we're just going to add a couple little fishies swimming along. There we go. And then we're going to notch our end. Okay, so this is the same deal as we did last time. So I'm actually going to trim this just a titch shorter. So we snip inwards in the middle as deep as we want our notch to go. Okay, and then from one corner into the top of the snip and the other corner into the top of the snip. And that's how we get a nice even banner. Okay, and then I'm also going to trim this end just a little bit because it's a little bit on the long side. All right, now this is going to go onto our card. We're going to pop it up again and get rid of our backings. There we go. And we'll just pop this on right about there and hope that it's straight-ish. There we go. How cute is that? So, so fun. Now, if this were not simple stamping, there are all kinds of things I could do to step this card up, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist the urge. I may post another version of this card over the weekend that shows it stepped up, but I am listening to, well, for the most part, obeying the simple stamping rules. Okay. All right. Let me get rid of this messed up inky grid paper, and I will bring back all three of our projects. There they are. So, so cute and so quick, right? So this stamp set is adorable. There are so many things you can do with just the stamp set. Okay, now this is part of a larger suite. I'll just quickly bring in my catalog so you can see the larger suite. There is beautiful paper, there's a coordinating punch, there's an embossing folder, there's ribbon and embellishments. Really, really pretty, but so many things you can do with just the stamp set. Okay, All right, everybody, that is it for me tonight. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. It is going to be hot, hot, hot here in Southern Ontario, and it looks like for the rest of the next week, it's going to be crazy hot. So I hope you have a way to stay cool, and worst case scenario, find a cool basement and do some stamping. Great way to stay cool when it's hot. All right, everybody, have a fabulous weekend. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you on Tuesday.